What is going on, everyone? My name is Andy. Welcome back to another FPL video. In this one, it's transfer tips ahead of game week 13. So we're going to look at the players that are being heavily transferred in, heavily transferred out, talk about whether people are making a mistake or not. Before we jump into the individual players, right, the normal way that I do this video, obviously give it a like and hit that subscribe button, because why not? If you're enjoying it, you might as well hit those buttons. But more importantly, I wanted to talk about some players that I'm not going to bring up individually because it just feels so obvious now that they should be in your team if they're not already. And I include myself in that because I don't own Reece James yet. I only own one Chelsea defender, which is Chilwell. At some point, I'm going to have to rectify that because the fixtures are just too good. They're keeping too many clean sheets and James is just so attacking as well. So these are the most transferred in defenders so far this week. So basically, the template for Trent, James, Chilwell and Cancelo make up 4 of the top 5. The other one is Rudiger, and obviously he did really well last week. Interestingly, Rudiger's been higher transferred in, or more highly transferred in than Chilwell so far. Trent's on nearly 250,000 transferred in. James is on 225, and Cancelo's on 157. Big at the back is real, and look, sometimes these things happen where people kind of join a bandwagon, right? Jump on the players that have just scored points. We see it a lot, especially at the start of the season. And I sit here and say, no, I think people are making a mistake. You should stick to this structure. Don't get him in just because he just scored points. With these defenders, it is extremely difficult to argue against going 4 at the back, maybe even 5 at the back. This is the first. I think this is the first time ever in over 10 years of playing FPL that I would definitely consider, and maybe I'm a bit late to the party now, going 4 or even 5 at the back, or at least having a squad that can play 5 at the back. Doesn't mean you have to play them every week, but there are so many good high-priced defenders right now. And once we maybe get rid of the likes of Kane, which is a discussion for team selection tomorrow, not necessarily this week, but in a few weeks' time, there's going to be a lot of money to go around if Salah's the only kind of premium player in our teams. So something to consider. But basically, I love all those players, the top 5. I think Rudiger's a really interesting one. I haven't got him down as a separate discussion, but he is pretty nailed on. Like, if I look at the minutes so far this season, he's only missed one game. He's played 90 minutes in every other game. 2 goals, 1 assist already. There is an argument to be made, and I've seen people making it on Twitter, that it should be Rudiger plus 1 of the other Chelsea defenders. Maybe you could go all 3 if you wanted to, but Rudiger plus 1 of Chilwell or James. I think James's underlying numbers look better than Chilwell, although I feel like from a goal threat perspective, I feel like Chilwell is just slightly above, like on the eye test at least. So you could, because we've got a lot of game weeks coming up, right? If we look at the fixtures, they play this Sunday, then they play on Wednesday, then it's back to Saturday with a week off. And then it's a midweek game again. Then obviously it gets really busy over Christmas. The only defender that's likely to play most of those games is Rudiger. And I'm not trying to scaremonger anyone that owns Reece James. I own Chilwell. Marcus Alonso is going to play at some point, and I'm sure at some point, as Blaqueta is going to play, he could play as wing back. They could play Pulisic there, Hudson-Odoi. Reece James, I just don't think he's going to play all those games. I could be wrong, and it might not matter, right? If he only misses one, who cares, right? Because he's going to get so many points in the rest. But it could be an option if you got Rudiger. I don't think if I had Rudiger, I don't think I'd be looking to sell him right now for one of the other Chelsea defenders. I'd probably just have him plus 1 more. But ultimately, you bring in any of those top 5 defenders because you don't already own them. That is a good transfer in this week. Reguilon's not bad, but I don't think he gets in above the 5 that are above him there. So yeah, I just wanted to quickly touch on that because I've not really got them down as individual options, but they're so good, they're worth talking about. And also, they're so heavily transferred in. Any of those 5 defenders at the top is a good transfer in. Let's talk about the rest. All right, let's talk about Michail Antonio. So last week, right, I did say I probably wouldn't look to get rid of him because he's playing Wolves, even though it was an away game. But I was surprised that he had so many transfers in. I think he had like 120-odd thousand transfers in last week. And now this week, that's kind of reversed. He's had 141,000 transfers out. People are starting to get a little bit frustrated with him. And if we look at what he's done recently, it's kind of, you can see why, right? Since those first 3 games where he was incredible, right? He got 4 goals, 4 assists in the opening 3 games. Absolutely ridiculous numbers. Since then, he's only scored 2 goals. And this isn't a case of him being unfit. He's played every single one of these games. He's played 90 minutes, apart from the Man United game where he was suspended because he got the red card against Southampton. He has been fit that whole time. So the performances, or at least the kind of results, the outcomes, have just not been good enough from Antonio so far in terms of the number of goals. Obviously, it's been a case where we know how good he is, so we haven't wanted to get rid of him. There maybe hasn't been a huge amount of other options as well. And I have said a few times in the last few weeks, I think people have maybe missed the boat to sell him. So I want to talk about whether you could still sell him if you wanted to, right? So the idea that we're going to need him for this great run later on, like from game week 16, 18 onwards, is kind of true. Like, I think, do you need him? Maybe not, but he is a good option, right? Anyone that sold him, I'm sure, is looking at possibly a way to get him back. But I did say a few weeks ago, I don't know if Burnley away and then Arsenal away is an absolutely must-buy time for Antonio. I think the real time where you're really going to want him is that game week 18 kind of fixture run, because you got Norwich, then Southampton, then Watford, Palace and Leeds in the space of 5 fixtures. Now it is over Christmas and Antonio has been fit for most of this season. He is likely to miss out one of those games, I would say. And again, I could say that for pretty much every single player in the league because there is just such quick turnarounds at Christmas. But Antonio especially will need to be managed. So which game is he going to miss? I don't know. It could be the Watford game in between Southampton and Crystal Palace away, possibly. So because of that, because I don't think you need him back until game week 18 at the earliest. You could go for game week 16, depending on what your transfer strategy is. There probably is a case that you could still sell him this week if you wanted to. Bearing in mind you're going to want him back. I think the team value locked up in him is something to consider, but I don't think it should stop you selling him. So if you've had him since 7.5 million, that shouldn't be the thing that stops you selling him. The thing that should be stopping you is, do you have a better transfer to do? Do you have a more important transfer to do? And do you think you can get points, right? Because if you get through this Man City game, let's say he blanks again, which he almost certainly will. That's a tricky game for anyone. And maybe you can bench him. Possibly you've got a decent enough bench to bench Antonio. Then suddenly in the next 5, he's got Brighton at home, Burnley away, Norwich at home. That looks okay. Okay, Chelsea at home's not easy, and Arsenal away could be difficult-ish, although we've seen like Liverpool put a few goals past, and West Ham's attack is pretty decent as well. There could be goals in that one, and I think that kind of game will suit West Ham as well, right? Away from home, they're very good on the counter. Let Arsenal have the ball, win it back, go and try and punish them, right? So there are a lot of games coming up. Antonio has been fit. I do wonder if the fact that it's great that he's been fit, right, but is the amount of games he's having to play more than normal, right? So a few games in Europe, obviously played for Jamaica as well. Is that starting to catch up on him? I don't know how used he is to doing that. I know there was that talk about how he's changed his diet this season. That's why, he stayed fitter for as long as he has. But I just don't know. Is that catching up with him? That's something maybe to slightly worry about coming up to a very congested period. So I don't think you've completely missed the boat if you want to sell him, although you are close to it, because I think it just depends how you look at it. If you look at the next 5, City, Chelsea, Arsenal, okay, maybe you don't need him. Brighton defence is pretty good as well. Or if you look at it, well, if I get through Man City, then suddenly it's Brighton, Burnley, Norwich. That's not that bad. So I think you can look at it either way. I do think you'll want him back in game week 18. You could possibly do it in game week 16. So I don't think it's the worst transfer out, but I'm looking at it and I'm just thinking, is it worth a hit to sell Antonio? I don't think it is. But if you can do it for free, maybe to one of the players we're going to talk about in a minute, maybe to Tony or someone like that, then it's not that bad of a transfer, because Man City away is a difficult fixture. But the fixtures are going to turn soon. I think West Ham are just too good to kind of go to let this kind of... They weren't great against Wolves. Obviously, they lost that game 1-0. But they beat Liverpool before that. They put 4 past Villa. Like, they are scoring goals. Antonio just unfortunately hasn't been heavily involved in them. And I just think they've got the fixtures to kind of turn it around. So I'm probably looking to keep him at the moment. I haven't completely ruled out selling him. But if you don't do it this week, I'm not really sure when you're going to do it. So you really need to make the decision this week. And I think you can go either way. Okay, so one of the players that people are looking to sell Antonio for is Raul Jimenez. And on a very, very short-term basis, I completely get it, right? We just saw Antonio's fixtures, Man City away, then Brighton at home. It's not the most ideal next 2 fixtures, especially when Jimenez has got Norwich away, Burnley at home, right? Much, much better fixtures. And I think, yes, Norwich got the win against Southampton. That might give them a bit of confidence, but I don't think they were that great. And Wolves are the better team, so I think they'll do perfectly fine. And to be honest, I'm just glad that Jimenez is getting some love, because since I got him in, I think it was game week 5 or 6 or something like that, whenever they played Southampton, he has done really well. Like, he's barely blanked at all. Like, if I just bring it up, so got him in. So bearing in mind he hadn't scored a goal or got an assist in the first 5 games. So it was game week 6. He has got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 returns since then, and obviously he kind of missed pretty much the whole Villa game. So in terms of consistency, he's been great, and the next 2 fixtures are brilliant. But the fixtures after that are awful, right? And I can't tell you now. I have been making transfer plans for the last couple of weeks, like through game week 15, 16, 17, and every single time, by the time game week 15 rolls around, Jimenez goes for me. Whether it's to Tony, whether it's to Josh King, Pookie, to Lacardia, Davis, it doesn't matter. At some point, I get rid of those funds and I spread them elsewhere because the fixtures are just about as bad as you can get. 3 of the 4 fixtures from game week 15 to 18 are against the 3 best defences in the league, I would say. And even Brighton can be up there with a team that's hard to break down as well. So if you're bringing him in, I don't think it's a bad transfer because Norwich away, Burnley at home is very good fixtures, but it is extremely short term. So as soon as you get him in, 2 game weeks later, you're looking to get rid of him again. If the fixtures were slightly better, you could make a case to keep him because he's nailed on pretty much for 90 minutes on penalties, etc. All that stuff I talked about weeks ago. But those fixtures are about as bad as they can get. The only way they could be worse is if they were all away games. Chelsea and Liverpool are obviously at home. Look, Wolves could do okay in those games, right? We've seen before, especially at the start of the season, how well they played on the counter. But I just don't see a huge amount of points, and I'm definitely looking to get rid of him. So not a bad transfer in, but I feel like if there's a player which you're happy to keep a bit longer, like, can I really say maybe Benteke is a better option? I don't know if I truly believe that, but he has got fixtures for a better period of time. But again, Jimenez is nailed for 90 minutes and for penalties as well. So that is something to consider. So good transfer in for the next 2, but keep in mind you're going to use a transfer pretty much straight away to get him out again. So there might be a better way you can go with the funds. Even possibly, if you're taking out a striker right now, it could be better to put those funds into midfield or defence, depending on how your team is set up. Okay, so people are I think there's 2 things going on here. One, people are getting a little bit annoyed, frustrated with Ruben Dias. He's now missed 2 of the last 5 games. But also, there's obviously a lot of other good defenders, which I spoke about right at the start, which are also really, really good options right now. James, I went on a podcast last night with who got the assist. Sorry, go and check them out. I'm just calling them the 4 defenders. You know exactly what I mean, right? I don't even need to say their names. The 4 defenders that everyone owns. People are looking to go from Diaz to one of them. So if they own James, they're going to Chilwell. If they own Chilwell, they're going to James, etc. Right? Let's talk about the games he's missed so far, because it feels like he's not nailed on. And obviously, clearly, he's not 100% nailed on. I don't think we can say that anymore. But if we look at the game so far, he's played 90 minutes every game apart from twice. So in Burnley, he came on, and he obviously missed the whole Everton game. Now, what's interesting about those 2 games is they both came after international breaks. So the Burnley game was after the second international break, and the Everton game was after the 3rd international break. So possibly now, going forward with these fixtures, he could be fairly nailed on. One thing is almost for certain, he's almost surely going to start that West Ham game. So if you've got other transfers to do, I think you can make a case to hold on to him. I think any fixture the Man City have, they're kind of favourites for a clean sheet. The West Ham at home game is no different. And he is going to get plenty of minutes over Christmas. The one thing that's interesting is, I can't remember where I read it, I can't remember if it was on The Athletic maybe, but how much Guardiola likes a left-footed player on the left side. And last year, a lot of the times, they played Diaz and Stones, and obviously both of them are right-footed, but they had Zinchenko playing left-back. Obviously, Cancelo did get some games at left-back, but Zinchenko also got a lot of games at left-back, and he's left-footed. This season, Cancelo is getting a lot of games. Kyle Walker, who I thought was really, really good in the last game as well, especially. I mean, he's just always good. But in the last game, I don't know, it just seems like a step above. Like, he was almost coming inside a lot and playing as a midfielder like Cancelo does, which I don't think we've seen too often from Kyle Walker. So because he's playing, Cancelo has to play right now because he's playing so well. He's right-footed. So Laporte's getting a lot of games as that left-sided centre-back. And at times, Pep has not been afraid to take Diaz out and put Stones there. I think that's even happened in the Champions League as well. So I'm not saying Laporte is more nailed on, but I think Laporte is also going to get quite a few minutes. And I think a lot of the time, you're going to be unlucky for a centre-back to come on in that Man City side. I know it happened against Burnley, right? Diaz came on, and I think Laporte got subbed off in the last game for Ake. But I think Laporte's going to get quite a few minutes. So right now, it's hard to justify Diaz for more money when he doesn't offer too much goal threat. And one of the reasons everyone went for him is because his minutes were pretty much secure. So right now, it feels like going for a less secure minutes player. Bearing in mind, Cancelo has played 12 out of 12, but someone like James Chilwell, etc., might be the play, right? I don't know if you need to rush out and do it. I think this week holding Diaz, who's got a good chance of a clean sheet against West Ham at home, is not a bad move. But given the fact that all these Chelsea players are going to start going up in price, and even if Cancelo, you don't own him, they probably are worth a long-term switch. Especially if you've got 2 free transfers, I don't see why you wouldn't make that Diaz move. And again, unless you've got something else to do. So I get it. I do think we could see him start 5 or even 6 out of the next 6, if I'm completely honest. And I think there's lots and lots of clean sheets in that next run of 6 games for Man City. But at a time when the template is so set for the 4 defenders, I just don't see a problem with moving him on. So if you've got other stuff to do, perfectly fine to keep him for West Ham. Otherwise, yeah, go and get one of those other defenders. All right, Jamie Vardy, I don't really get this. 103,000 transfers out. I think there's timing is everything in FPL, right? And obviously, if we could all time every single transfer perfectly, then we'd win FPL more often than not. But I do think this week is the wrong time to be getting rid of him, right? Watford at home is just too good to give up. Even if you wanted to wait till like Southampton away or Villa away, which are a little bit tougher, that might be the time to do it. And obviously, Watford have just got a good result against Man United, so maybe you could make a case for that being a little bit more of a difficult fixture. Maybe they're a little bit more confident. But I think this is a really good game. Now, the problem for Leicester is they haven't done that well recently, and obviously Tielemans is out as well. We'll have to see if he's back this week, but I don't think he's going to be. In fact, if I just bring up Leicester here, we can see when he's apparently out for. So Tielemans is red flag. Oh, expected back 19th of December. So he's going to be out for a little while, right? So that's not good for Leicester. And their recent results haven't been great. Obviously, they lost to Chelsea, but I mean, who doesn't, right? They drew 1-1 with Leeds. They lost to Arsenal at home. They only beat Brentford 2-1 as well. So there hasn't been a huge amount of goals. And obviously, Vardy kind of did really well at the start and has kind of started to tail off a bit. But like I said before, I think timing is kind of everything. And I don't really know where people are going. Like, if you're going to a Spurs player, again, I think the time to do that was next week. And even if you wanted to still wanted a Spurs player, bringing him in before Burnley away when Vardy's got Watford at home, I just don't think is the time to do it, really. Unless maybe you were waiting to see who played best out of Kane and Son, and that was your move. But I don't know if we really learnt a lot from that Spurs game. I don't think they were that good, to be honest. So if you wanted to go for a Spurs player, I think you wait for the Brentford home, Norwich at home fixture if you've got Vardy now. The only other thing I can think is maybe people are downgrading to get money into defence for one of those 4 defenders, maybe for Jota if he's past fit. So fair enough, right? I don't think Vardy is a must own, but if you've got him, surely you keep him for Watford at home. I just think everything else can maybe wait a week when the fixtures get a little bit tougher. But there's nothing wrong with his next 4 fixtures at all. If you wanted to keep him the whole way through, you could. So 100,000 transfers out. I don't get it, if I'm completely honest. All right, I wanted to talk about Salah. Okay, it's not maybe huge transfers in like some of the other players that we talked about, but he is being transferred in. He's one of those players that people often say to me, you overlook, you don't talk about enough. And I think with Mane, it's just a situational thing where Salah is a better option. Even if he's more expensive, he just is a better option, right? I think his points per game something like over 10 so far this season. Mane's 5.9. 5.9 is not bad, but it ain't Salah levels. Trent is very difficult to ignore. And then right now, because Firmino's out, and we'll have to wait and see what Klopp says about Firmino. Maybe he'll give us some kind of time frame indication. Jota is just such a good value option. So how the hell do you fit Mane in? Now, let's talk about him in isolation. For 12 million, he probably has the underlying numbers to kind of warrant that price tag. And we have seen him hit over 200 points before. But obviously, he doesn't have penalties. We know that Mo Salah has them. So it's very hard to justify that much money for someone you're not going to captain. Now, I'm in the same position with Kane right now. You could definitely throw that argument back at me. You've got Kane in. When are you captaining him? Maybe game week 15. But outside of that, I'm probably not. So my current plan is possibly to downgrade that second premium spot and at least spread the money out somewhat into other areas of the team. So the problem for Mane for me is not that he's not a good player, not that he's not a good option that's going to score plenty of points, right? In fact, if we just bring him up for the last couple of games. I think he's been pretty decent form. I thought he'd scored more points than Salah, then I realised I've got it listed by transfers in. So he scored a goal and assist against Arsenal, nothing against West Ham, goal against Brighton, nothing against Man United, goals against Watford and City. So he has done well. He's already got 9 returns so far. In 12 matches. He obviously he only played 30 minutes against Man United away. So 9 returns in 11 games. It's a pretty good record, but I just think, I'm thinking about how people's squads are set up, and yes, some people will have better team value than others, but with the 4 defenders, Jota to look at as well as a great value option. Maybe some people have got Foden, Kane or Son. It's just very hard to fit Mane in. So do I think he's a good option? Yes. But do I think he's worth it for most teams? Like, if I didn't have Jota, would I swap Kane to Mane? Possibly. But I just think a better use of the money is to get Jota and spend the extra money elsewhere. And I just think that's all that Mane needs, really, is when the good fixtures come, like Liverpool have got good fixtures coming up, right? This run now for ages is great. Obviously, African Cup of Nations, him and Salah are going to go away. So if that wasn't happening, the only thing that really makes Mane a great option is a Salah injury. And I just think that's what it is with Mane. I just can't see a way to spend that 12 million right now when you can get Jota, Trent and Salah, who I just think are better options from Liverpool. So again, it's not a mistake per se for people that have transferred him in. I'm just not sure it's the best use of a transfer, at least in my opinion. You might think different. Let me know below. So let me know what you think about those players. Are any of the mistakes right? Could Diaz be held for one more week? Is there any reason to ignore the 4 defenders right now? What about Mane? Is he worth a spot in our teams over someone like Kane that a lot of us have got in right now? There's lots to consider this week. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Do give it a like if you enjoyed it, and hit that subscribe button if you are new around here. And a big shout out to everyone that's signed up for Patreon, especially thanks to the new Patreons, George, Daniel M and Adam M, who have signed up since the last time I did the shout outs as well. If you want to check that out, there is a link in the description below. I will leave it there. I'll be back with team selection tomorrow. Thank you very much for watching. Give it a like if you enjoyed it. Hit that subscribe button if you're new, and I'll see you again tomorrow.